Welcome, everyone. I'm going to open the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee for Thursday, May 8th, 2025. And if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Well, welcome everyone. Just a heads up that a couple people or a few people here will be absent today, are not able to join us for different reasons. Mayor Buck, Commissioner Ben West, Mayor Hodson, and Sherry French. So those are the four folks that are not here, and we have a number of people online. So let's just go around the room, and then we can also familiarize ourselves with who's online as well. So Paul Savas, Clackamas County.
Kenny Cernak, representing CPOs.
Michael Milch, Mayor of Gladstone.
Todd Wood, representing small transit providers.
Good evening, everyone. Dwight Brashear, representing the urban transit providers.
Ann Shevlin, Wilsonville City Council.
Oh, I'm sorry. Scott Holscher. I'm a transportation planner for Clackamas County. I guess I'm at the table because I'm presenting. I'm not part of C4.
Trent Wilson, County Staff, Government Affairs.
Jamie Lorenzini, staff.
And folks in the back.
Amy Stasny, Transportation and Land Use Policy Manager at Clackamas County.
Department of Transportation.
Mark Ahmed, Public Affairs Director, City of Wilsonville.
Great, thank you. And those online.
Good evening, John Callahan, City of Happy Valley.
Lori Smallwood, City of Sandy.
Kristen Sacco, City of Tualatin.
Paul Gornick, Oak Lodge Water Services.
Great, thank you so much. So Jamie, do we have a quorum tonight?
Oh, I think a quorum is 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We are just shy of a quorum.
Okay. So we will forego the approval of the minutes unless someone does walk in. And if so, let me know. Our first, I do want to make an announcement. I've known Mark Ottenot a long time, and I understand this is his last meeting. And so Mark Ottenot has been part of C4, a participating member for a long time. Just want to recognize him going back as far as 2008, about. And so that leaves a little bit more of a burden on my shoulders, Mark, because that just makes me one of not only the longer standing, but you've been able to help things along over the years, and we appreciate you. So congratulations on your retirement, as I understand, correct?
Thank you. Yes, indeed. At the end of the month.
Okay, so with that, we will get into our first presentation. We have today with us Scott Holscher.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Savas. As I mentioned, I'm a transportation planner for the county. I've been with Clackamas County in one capacity or another for over 20 years. And I was invited to talk about a little project that we've been working on for about 2.5 years now, called the Walk by Clackamas Plan. Thank you, Jamie. So this project is an update to our pedestrian bicycle master plan. So it's going to be the first combined pedestrian bicycle modal element for Clackamas County. We've previously had these documents as separate plans, and now we've combined them into one Walk by Clackamas plan. So been invited to give an overview of this project and answer any questions. So kind of wanted to do 3 things tonight. Provide a brief overview, then talk about some of the main outcomes of the project, and then talk a little bit about where we are in the adoption process. And I lost the PowerPoint, Jamie. Do I need to do something on?
Nope, I gotcha.
Lost the beautiful picture. There we go. All right, so what is Walk by Clackamas? I like to think of this as kind of a roadmap for future pedestrian bicycle improvements. where do we need new bikeways, trails, sidewalks to make walking and biking a viable form of transportation? So really looking at identifying future needs and also prioritizing those. And we've prioritized those into three buckets, high, medium, and low priority projects. And I'll show you a map representing the projects in a little bit. But this was a project that we really centered community engagement at the forefront. It was a pretty small budget for the project. Most of the budget was spent on community engagement. So we really tried to center the public at the beginning of the project and really all the way through the end. My role was really to steer the ship and make sure that we didn't, hit any icebergs.
Cannot.
So I will talk a little bit about the community engagement, but I wanted to also kind of where does this project fall in our other adopted plans? So it can be a little bit confusing navigating all of the adopted plans that we have in Clackamas County. So I just wanted to highlight three plans that kind of focus on bicycle and pedestrian improvements and kind of talk about the differences between plans that you can see on the screen, the active transportation plan, Mount Hood Villages plan, and the CRC plan, what those are and how this walk bike plan is different than these adopted plans. So the active transportation plan is a project that was adopted by the board in 2016. And that project looked at principal active transportation routes between communities throughout Clackamas County. So those kind of think of it as the main artery system of the walk bike system. So the freeway network and the main arteries of a bicycle and pedestrian network. So it identified 20 principal connections between the communities in Clackamas County. So it was really a project that was very limited in scope, not for the whole county, but identified principal connections between communities. In that same year, we also did a Mount Hood Villages plan, which looked at the bicycle and pedestrian needs in the Mount Hood Villages area. Zigzag, Welch's, Wemme, the Mount Hood Villages. It did not look at Government Camp, but the lower down villages and looked at prioritizing bicycle and pedestrian needs in the Mount Hood Village. The Clackamas Regional Center Bikeway Plan was something that looked at last mile connections at the end of the Max Green Line. Some of those improvements have been done recently and constructed as part of the CRC Ped Bike Improvement Projects. You've maybe seen some of the improvements along Sunnyside Road. So a lot of those projects from that plan have already been constructed. So the walk bike plan is really looking at, we've done some targeted efforts, but we haven't done a full ped bike plan since 1996. So it's been almost 30 years since we did a full update of our pedestrian bicycle master plans. Because of the size of Clackamas County and the complex geography, we really needed to break the county up into 5 distinct planning areas. So at the beginning of the project, we created these 5 planning areas, and each area has its own unique set of needs and project priorities. Bicycle and pedestrian needs are different in the Mount Hood area. Context is different. The type of facilities that we would build in the Mount Hood area are different than in the urban area, in the McLaughlin area, for example. So creating these areas and really focusing on the needs of these specific areas was an important first step of the project. And the 5 areas you can see here generally follow, geographic boundaries, rivers, arterial roadways, et cetera. And the 5 areas are, east area in the Mount Hood area, south area, south of Canby and including Molalla, Northwest County, McLaughlin area, and the Clackamas Town Center area. So I mentioned at the beginning that community engagement was really a centerpiece of this project. So I want to spend a couple slides on talking about some of the specific activities that we did during the 2.5-year project. This is a picture of At the time, it was referred to as Trolley Trail Fest. It's now changed its name, but for 2 years, we went out there and engaged with the Oak Grove community and got a lot of good feedback from the Oak Grove community. But at the start of the project, even before we had our consultant on board, we conducted a week-long engagement at the county fair, and we asked people, when you think about walking and biking in Clackamas County, what comes to mind? And we had 5 categories, and it was a kind of a simple dot game. But it was a good early engagement that set the framework for the walk bike plan. We based our goals and our vision based on this early feedback. So that's a picture in the center of the slide showing this simple dot game at the county fair. And we did that through the whole week of the fair. Got some good early feedback. And other things we did, you can see those on the slide. We formed a project advisory committee that met 4 times, that consisted of 18 members. We did project fact sheet and distributed that both electronically and in community centers, libraries, did distribution of the hard copy of the fact sheet, created an interested parties list, and did social media blasts, project website, had a couple articles in the Clackamas County newsletter. So we really worked hard on trying to spread the word and getting good feedback throughout the project. Part of our community engagement was centered around 4 engagement milestones. These were spaced kind of equally throughout the 2.5-year project. And I'll just kind of briefly talk about what these were. So besides all the other techniques on the previous slide, these 4 engagement milestones were really designed to get feedback on project deliverables and different milestones. So we started off milestone number 1 in late fall 2022, these so-called community conversations. And what those were actually going out into the community instead of having an open house at a county building where people had to travel to, these so-called community conversations where we brought information out into the community. And we held a series of those community conversations in the fall of 2022. Milestone number 2 was a virtual interactive map and survey using the so-called wiki mapping platform. And that's where users can go online and drop a pin or draw a line on where there's gaps, where there's deficiencies in the network. So that was a good way to get feedback on building the project lists. Milestone number 3 was, there's actually 3 parts to milestone number 3. There was we held an open house. We did another survey, and then we did more tabling at the county fair. Milestone number 4 was a final survey that put out the draft plan and got feedback on the final draft map. Big part of the project and another important step besides all the community engagement was doing an agency partner workshop. So this is where we convened partners from the cities in Clackamas County, and we got 13 staff together to talk about what's everybody working on in terms of active transportation, what are future priorities around the county. This workshop helped inform project lists and define some opportunities for collaboration. And you can see we had a kind of a posted electronic poster board where we had suggestions, opportunities for collaboration. So that was an important step in the project. And it helped inform the first outcome, which is kind of the heart of the walk bike plan, is a series of sidewalk, bikeway, trail projects throughout the county. In the 5 areas that I showed you, this slide shows the total number of projects in the plan. The plan is centered around 2 types of projects. There's linear projects, which include things like linear sidewalks, linear trails such as the trolley trail. So linear projects. Plan also includes point projects. Point projects includes things like a new crosswalk with rectangular or rapid, what we call RRFBs. That would be an example of a point project, a bike box, a bike signal, another example of a point project. So this slide, I wanted to share with you just the total number of projects in the plan by the different planning areas, 236 projects total. And you can see the mileage and the breakdown by each of the 5 areas. This is an example of one of the planning area maps showing the walk bike plan. And what we're showing are the projects within the McLaughlin area in this case. The different colors on the map represent the different priority tiers. The plan calls for high, medium, and low priority projects. So if it's a green colored line, that's the highest priority. That yellow or kind of orangish color is medium priority. And then the red is low priority. The point projects are shown, as a circle with the number kind of offset. If the number is on the line, that represents that linear project. So I don't have an example of a table, but these maps work hand in hand with tables that give further information about the project. And I have a copy of the draft plan, which I can pass around if people want to kind of dive in and look at different projects this evening. So another outcome is this concept of shared streets. And this is a new type of facility for Clackamas County. We don't have any of these currently in the county. But what these are local streets where we identified opportunities to lower the speed limit on the street to 20 miles an hour and also provide signage and different markings to indicate streets where biking, walking, and recreating, shares the space with lower speeds. So this is an urban treatment that would be on local roadways. And we went through a process of identifying where are these appropriate to do. We had a number of criteria, things like no transit, could not have a bus route on these streets. They had to be local classifications, and there are a number of criteria. The importance of this is it provides good connectivity and connection to the other parts of the system. So the other bike lanes, trails, et cetera. These are kind of those connector streets. And through this project, we identified, I think there's close to 30 of these streets. They haven't been implemented yet. That would be a next step in the future. But through this plan, we've identified these so-called shared streets. Another outcome are supportive programs. So besides building sidewalks and bike lanes and trails and all that good stuff that's important for safety reasons, programs are part of our effort to create a safe system for everybody. And so programs, an example of an existing program that the county engages in is Safe Routes to School. We'll also do high school traffic safety classes. On this slide, the existing programs are shown in kind of the darkish blue color. Coming out of this walk bike plan process, we identified 6 potential new programs. There's not funding for these right now, but these are potential programs that the county could invest in the future. And I can certainly take questions on any of those. I won't go through them all now, but you can kind of see what some of these are. So bike lane sidewalks, capital projects, supportive programs. Outcome number 3 are updating policies in our TSP. So a lot has changed since 1996 when we first adopted our pedestrian bicycle master plan and haven't done a full update since 1996. So part of this process was updating policies. There's 7 new active transportation policies, 6 amended policies in the current TSP, and then we added walk bike plan goals. And now these go into the current TSP. An example of a policy I've put up on the screen. One of the things that came out of the new transportation planning rule, which provides guidance for bicycle and pedestrian planning, is looking at if there's not a good parallel route to a high-speed arterial, is providing some sort of protected or separated bike facility. That's really looking at doing something more than just a white line, which isn't always safe if it's next to high-speed traffic. So looking at new policies that identify those sort of facilities. So where are we in this process? Like I said, it's been about a 2.5-year project, and we are going through the adoption process now. There was a planning commission public hearing 2 weeks ago, and planning commission for Clackamas County voted unanimously 9-0 to approve the walk bike plan. And there's a public hearing before our Board of County Commissioners on May 13th, next Tuesday. That is, scheduled next Tuesday. And I think with that, that's kind of what I wanted to share about the project. And I can pass around the document if people are interested in taking a look or answer any questions.
Great. Questions? Counselor?
Thank you. Again, since I'm new to the group, Ann Shevlin from Wilsonville City Council. Just a question. Thank you, Scott. Very good work and very informative. My question has to do with the portion of the paving of the bike ped area on Stafford Road, specifically as it supports Wilsonville from I-205 down into Wilsonville to Beckman Road. Right now, that's considered a priority 3 project. At the same time, the portion of Stafford Road into Lake Oswego is a priority 2. So thinking about the roundabout that the 2 counties, Clackamas and Washington, and then of course the city of Wilsonville are working on together for that Elligson and Stafford and 65th Avenue roundabout. Just wondering if there might be some consideration for bringing that priority 3 paving section up to a priority 2, such as Lake Oswego's is, so that bring that entire area of Stafford to bike ped as well, or rather walking. We have had some conversation with some employees at Mentor Graphics, one of our larger employers, who live, interestingly, in Lake Oswego and would enjoy biking to work, but they wouldn't be able to do that until the priority 3 project was completed. So just a question for consideration.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And that's a great point. And I was aware of the differences in the priorities, and that was pointed out. And I can tell you that the way the priorities were determined through the project was we set up under the goals that were identified at the beginning of the project. There were a number of criteria, quantitative criteria. So it was a technical analysis that actually gave scores for every single over close to 240 projects. Everyone was scored. And then through the analysis, they were assigned based on the score, they were assigned the category. So I think looking at that as a complete system makes a lot of sense in changing that. That could be something that's taken up at the public hearing before the Board of County Commissioners. I could certainly look at the numbers and how those different ones scored. Like I could look at one of the criteria, or I can look at all the criteria and find out, why did that section score as it did?
Certainly.
And I'm happy to do that and pull out those scores. You know, and sometimes that's the numbers, sometimes there's a human element that's needed as well, you know, to look at the whole system.
Sure. Well, we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Mayor.
Scott, I noticed that since you work for the county, I'm assuming most of these projects are in unincorporated county areas, but they do, you know, a lot of the same theory and reasoning and design would apply to cities that were doing their own walk-bike plan. So like you gave, for example, the shared streets, your guidance on that, don't use a street that's already a transit route and other things. So I think what you learn from engaging with the public and people who want to use this form of transportation, that would be real helpful information for local cities to have when they do their own plans within their city boundaries, because we ought to follow similar rules and make sure that people, you know, who are biking on your shared streets and they come into our city, we want them to know that our shared streets will follow similar safety standards and guidance. So I appreciate that this work can be very valuable to city constituencies as well.
Yeah, and I'm happy to share with you and any other, you know, partner city, you know, how we went about. I have a full, you know, tech memo and information on the process to identify those shared streets. And, you know, part of the next step, as I mentioned, is that the implementation of the shared street. And part of that is looking at, you know, connectivity into the city and then how that looks and how can we coordinate with the cities? Because, you know, as a cyclist, you don't care if you're in Gladstone or unincorporated or Milwaukee, you know. So it's important when we implement those is to look at those connecting pieces.
Yeah, and Scott, if I'm not mistaken, all the TSPs, walk, bike, ped, all these plans fold into the RTP, correct? In some way? At least in the metro area.
Yeah, let me think about that. Yeah, I would have to, I don't know how,
Maybe
you kind
another
of
way of,
stumped me on
maybe another
that.
way of asking it. This goes into our TSP, correct?
This will go into the TSP.
TSPs go into the RTP.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, great. Any other questions? Anyone online? Seeing none. Well, thank you, Scott, very much for your presentation. And I believe now we may have a quorum? No. Okay. I thought we might. Okay, so we'll move on. And we now have Rob Sadowski, who's going to do our transportation safety presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon or good evening, I guess. Oh, we were just there. My name is Rob Sadowski. I am the county's traffic safety outreach coordinator. But what I tell people, like my mother-in-law, that I do is I try to get people not to do stupid things while they drive their car. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I do that. I know that last month we had a presentation from my direct supervisor, Joe Merrick, who's retiring soon, talking about the planning work and how that safety planning work is going right now, and it will also roll up into our TSP. And so I'm going to talk about the non-infrastructure work, the non-street stuff, the stuff with people. So we like to think of our work as a big village. Many of you are a big part of my work, whether you know it or not. And that is, in order for us to keep people safe and to achieve our goal of reaching zero traffic fatalities, it's going to involve everybody. It is going to involve, that doesn't work. Okay, I will just walk it through. This is a great animated a part of my presentation that you will now miss. I'll give you some examples of how all this kind of connects. Let's imagine a guy named Joe who had a really hard day at work. I went to his supervisor and said, I'm having a really hard day at work. I'd like to go home. And his supervisor says, no, you got to work through the rest of the day. He gets angry throughout the day. He gets in his car as he's driving home. He's just not even paying attention, and he hits a pole. And that's in a rural area that isn't very close to a Trauma One center. And he's not able to survive that crash because of a variety of elements. Maybe we didn't get to him in time. Maybe it was just too fast and his car couldn't handle it. But if we look at that question of Joe and say, how can we both learn from that experience and prevent that from occurring in the future, we would go as far upstream as possible. So far upstream would be, how do we get him to a Trauma One center quickly? What were the issues at stake? Did we need to carry blood out to that situation? Were we able to call a flight evacuation in order to make that happen? Is our 911 center qualified to make a call like that? Or do we need to have that call be made on site? What about mental health care for Joe? Could we have identified, could that boss have treated that situation differently by saying, hey, we have an employee assistance program, we'd like to get you help? I'm concerned by. So that's kind of my thoughts in this is all these different things come into play, from fleet operators who are operating commercial fleets, like some of our major corporations that are operating within the county, like Fred Meyer or Freightliner, to our enforcement specialists, to our sheriff's team, to our team that deals with mental health, all variety of wraparound services, to counselors and intervention along the way. So that's kind of where we fit. Just to give you kind of sense of where crashes, particularly serious and fatal crashes, are within the county, the total crashes have trended down since 2018. This is just from 2018 to 2022. We just got data from ODOT, but I did not update these graphs yet. But our fatal and serious crashes, you can actually see, are trending upward. There are a number of reasons for that. We don't completely understand all the time, because crashes we can better understand, but fatal and serious tend to be little blips. They don't always follow patterns. Sometimes as we get into the detail, it's for a variety of reasons. But it is a concern, and some of the things that have been happening, COVID actually did a real number on our traffic fatalities, because not a lot of people were driving in the early times of COVID. The streets were kind of wide open, and when streets are wider open, people drive faster. They feel like it's a faster environment to go in. There was also word out on the street that we were not enforcing our traffic rules anymore. And so those two things combined contribute to not more people driving, but more serious injuries because the speeds were going up. There was also a lot of mental health, depression, alcohol use, drug use that was climbing due to the similar things that were happening at that time. But it is around, we average around 30, 35 fatalities a year. And our belief is that no one should ever suffer fatality from driving, even if they make a mistake. Death and serious injury is really unacceptable. We know we can learn from this. If we treat car crashes in the same way that we treat airplane crashes, we can really make a difference. Airplane crashes are very, very rare. Same are train crashes, because we have investigative bodies that go in and understand it. And so we are looking at better understanding our crashes, how speed impacts crashes, how our roads impact crashes, how just the fact of getting out to crashes in time matter, as well as safe road users. And my work is really focused on these safe road users. So here's our outreach work in a nutshell in our region. You may have to press something to make this work. Like press, yeah. Oh, is it in a PDF? Yeah, that's not going to play. I can always walk you through this. We know that distracted driving is a causation factor in 80% of all crashes. We don't know that for a solid fact, because people, when they get in crashes, don't say, hey, I was on my telephone, or if they were deceased, we don't know the information necessarily for that. But based on studies that Stanford University has done, we believe that it's a causation factor. We raised money from the State Department of Transportation to create this campaign. Oh, here we go. Targeting particularly teenagers young adult drivers in our more rural parts of our community.
You're about to hit the road. And that means it's time to use Do Not Disturb to give yourself and your phone a well-deserved break. It's a chance to relax, to get some space to breathe. Trust me, your phone will be fine. And so will you. Use Do Not Disturb and focus on what matters. The road.
Part of the reason we do campaigns is one, we want to put a message out there to folks. And the second is we want to create a semblance of a culture of safety around the county, a sense of that we are doing something. And then when I go and do my presentation work within high schools, particularly, and fairs, it reinforces the messages continually. So this is a campaign that we ran in the past. We've also run a campaign on driving under the influence of cannabis. We're currently in the process of developing a campaign around aggressive driving, particularly amongst young male drivers between the ages of 18 and 26, and middle-aged male drivers between the ages of 45 to 65. There's reasons for that. The data is really clear that those are the drivers that are causing the most significant of our crashes, and are also one of the hardest to reach. I go into schools. I take over Health 1 and Health 2 in Clackamas County high schools. One of the reasons I focus on schools is that young brains are not fully developed until the age of 25 or 26, depending upon their gender. The prefrontal cortex part of the brain is developing over time. And it is a good time for me to impact them, to go in and communicate with them. Teachers are required to teach in Health 1 a session on alcohol, drugs, vaping, opioids, as well as driving. And in Health 2, there's a driving component. I make their life easier by just coming in and taking over for the day. And I do it in a way that's kind of fun and interactive. These are posters that are part of the Health 1 class. At the end of the class, they're required to do a health poster. It's part of the state curriculum. And as you can see, some of them are lined up with sobriety, some of them are lined up with physical activity, and some of them are lined up to driving. And then we can take these posters and amplify them throughout the community. We also have a guest speaker named Kevin Brooks. Kevin is from British Columbia, just north of Vancouver. He is paralyzed from the waist down after he crashed his vehicle with his best friend in it when he was graduating high school. His best friend did not survive. He comes out and speaks about choices and about recovery and about mental health care and survival, as well as suicide. It's a really great collaborative presentation that we have with our Department of Health, Housing, and Human Services. We try to get Kevin out to every high school in our community every 4 years. This is all no cost to the high schools. It's completely funded. State Farm Insurance usually gives us a nice grant to help pay for his time. At the fair, unfortunately, I was not at the fair last year and will not be at the fair this year because the fair is rebuilding the cow and pig barn, and the cow and pigs are where we normally are. So we will be back at the fair in 2026, knock on Formica. And but what we've been doing instead is going out to communities. So we are going out into neighborhoods that have fairs and fest, whether it's Lake Oswego or Happy Valley, or very soon at the Harmony campus at CCC, to do what we call Safety Street. We bring these little pedal cars. It's for kids 9 and under. It teaches things like pedestrian safety and crosswalk safety, even though they're driving a car. They see it from the car perspective, and the adults have to go with them and teach them driving safety. And so we actually can impact both the parent and the kid at the same time. We do things like helmet fitting as part of our Safe Routes to School. This is sometimes a partnership with, this is now Legacy Emmanuel. At the time, it was OHSU. Car seat fitting is a really important piece, particularly in our rural communities. Getting car seats or low cost or free car seats out to folks and teaching them how to fit. We partner with a group called Oregon Impact as well as Legacy Emmanuel. And on the bottom left this is in Sandy. This is a presentation by AAA for seniors. Seniors are a very interesting story. When we last looked at data Our seniors are we're roughly 17% of the population, and so are our serious and fatal crashes. Numbers that we're looking at now as part of our new TSAP is an increase in crashes to seniors. So this may be something that we increase or expand upon. Seniors generally outdrive their drivability, men by 7 to 8 years and women by 5 years. So in other words, they should stop driving, and they don't for 5 to 6 years after that. One of the reasons that happens is that as I talked about the prefrontal cortex being developed until 26, around the age of 50, our prefrontal cortex and brain starts to remap again to as we start to live older, and we need different things. We actually have to pay more attention to things like walking and not tripping. And our brain adapts to that. But one of the negative consequences of that adaptation is driving. So if you haven't had a conversation with your parents or grandparents or in-laws, you probably will at some time, and it's not a great conversation. But we try to help and link people through that with our partnerships, particularly with AAA. So how can you get involved? We have a SIF Systems Task Force, which is helping us on our planning. All of our marketing materials are able to be co-branded and co-created. We had a meeting today with a number of partners, including Todos Juntos, a group in Sandy that's working on aging, community, who are helping us design our next plan. And we also know that while the county has some cred, it doesn't have a lot of cred amongst everybody. So the more people are co-branding, the better. The more they see the message coming from a variety of communities. And we also know that it's very expensive to do some of this marketing, and we will co-brand without no cost to community, and if they are in said county. We're having some conversations with Hillsborough and Portland about co-branding, but they would have to pay their own costs and their own expenses for that. Invite us to your community fairs and festivals, small or big. Remember that we particularly focus our fairs and festivals on younger adults, so that 9 and under, although we can do tabling events for teenagers and adults as well as seniors. And help us introduce us to school principals and superintendents. I had a meeting with Gladstone superintendent on Monday. On Monday, we have not been in Gladstone for a while. We have been in Wilsonville, but not recently. The more that we can get into communities, the better. We know that the schools that we're in typically have less serious and fatal crashes amongst teenagers. It could be as a result of my work, but it's probably just random. But it's a really great opportunity because we don't have required driver's education. It's one of our few ways to touch people. So if you think about it, invite us in. We're also sharing these requests with the CTAC so that if you give direction to your city managers, they will have heard about this as long as they were at the meeting that we just had. And that's what I have for you. I'm certainly available to talk here. We do have time budgeted if you want to have any conversation. And you can also reach me at my phone number here and on my email.
Great. Thank you, Rob. Can you just maybe just share, folks, how long Drive the Zero Hour program's been around and some of our awards that we've gotten and recognition we got on the national scale?
I don't know if I can answer the second question as much. I know that Joe has received a few awards and some of our videos have received awards. For example, the video that I showed got a Silver Addy, which is an advertising award in the Northwest, which is actually for people in the ad businesses. It's pretty well known. I don't know a lot about it, but it was pretty nice. Our traffic safety action plan was last adopted in 2019, but I believe our first one was in 2012. We were the first county in the country to have a traffic safety action plan and the first one to have a goal of zero. Our program, though, that I'm working on, my predecessor, Patty, used to work at the sheriff's office. And I guess that's 19 years ago since we've been doing this work. It's evolved over time. We have some really great temporary staff. That's another thing that you can do. If you know people who need part-time jobs, I hire people during the summer to do this work, and it's a really fun team. And I pay people $21, $22 an hour. And honestly, the younger they are, the better, because it's while I can reach high schoolers, the younger people have a different way of talking than I do.
Yeah, I think it was about 13 years ago. I was at a National Association of Counties
Hmm.
annual conference and walked into a conference on traffic safety, and we were accolades. I mean, it wasn't organized that way, but they were just talking about Clackamas County as an example of our program. So I can't remember all of the awards we've gotten, but I know we've got done very well. So the fact that we've been at it a long time is a good sign. Hopefully that'll just continue to pay dividends.
Yeah, and the more that our communities can partner with us, the better. If you're interested in learning more about how to do your own traffic safety plan and where you can get money for that, I'm absolutely happy to help you think about grant writing for that. And our, Joe may have mentioned this last time, but our traffic planning work that we're doing will all have guidebooks that our counties can use to really plug and play. And some of the data is going to be the same because while you asked a great question about unincorporated versus local roads versus state roads, my work, I don't care where you're at. If you're on I-5, it's still something that I want to look at and try to address. Because behavior doesn't, as Scott mentioned, doesn't have an address and doesn't really have a route map.
Great. Questions? Okay, first up, Dwight.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for the presentation. This kind of hits home with me. My dad is 90 years old, and good luck taking the keys
Yeah.
from him. That being said, I think there's a role for transit to play in this. For example, in Wilsonville, we, through a partnership with Metro, we offer a travel training to seniors. And so I'm thinking expanding that program will help with that transition.
Absolutely.
Having, someone in my dad's case that would sit down with him, family is good, but then having someone that he thinks is a professional in this kind of field of travel training to explain to him how easy it could be to transition from that pickup truck that he loves to drive, 25 miles an hour in a 60-mile zone. How easy
At
that
least it's not the other way around.
well, that's true. But how easy that transition can be. And we work with seniors literally every day. And we are proactive. I mean, we get out there, but a lot of times we're waiting for the family member to call us and say, my dad, my
Right.
mom, needs this training. But I think there's an opportunity for transit agencies like ours to partner with the
Mhm.
county and maybe get, because the number that you
Absolutely.
share is staggering for the seniors that are involved in these fatality accidents. And I just, I don't want anybody to be involved in that. And, of
Yep.
course, my dad is one that I worry about every day.
Yeah, and even before they get to that age, it's teaching folks how to use their safety equipment in their cars. We learned recently that a lot of cars don't have their safety features turned on as default. So you get your car, it doesn't have the lane detection software and the other things. And so some seniors are like, I'm afraid of that. I'm not even going to touch it. And it's actually some of the safest things that they can have because when you start to slow down, your reaction time slows down. So having that brake assistant is really important. Having the bells that tell you you're out of the lane are really important. So both of those. And we have and our task force, we have a lot of rain opportunity for have that conversation. So I look forward to your input on that.
Absolutely. And
Yep.
travel training is just, I mean, we priced
It's
it.
great.
We priced it right at zero.
Well,
It
and
doesn't cost anything for the travel training.
Scott didn't mention this because it's a different project, but he's coordinating a transportation demand management planning process right now. And there are certainly going to be travel option training opportunities that we're going to be looking at for that too.
Right. Well, we do bus, Max Line,
Yep.
West Line, with the West train.
Mhm.
We actually get folks from, say in this case, Wilsonville, all the way to the airport, and we show them how to transition from one mode to the next, and it's
Yep.
been very successful.
And one of the things that people don't often think about is what is the role of zoning and siting of senior centers and senior homes and senior buildings? And are you placing them in an area that is accessible, that has sidewalks, and what are those limitations? So when we look at data, we look and see whether there's any negative impact or adverse impact to certain communities. So I'm interested to see what the impact of seniors are, whether there's anything that we can do just from a design perspective too.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Great.
Mayor Milch.
Along the same lines as what Dwight was saying, it always pleases me that at the end of the school year, our schools and our libraries have the posters in, at least in our city, for TriMet offering free transit passes to young people because they're in that age group where the brain is still developing. And that's a time they can learn how to use public transit without, and maybe learn that they don't need to be driving a car themselves to get around. That's a good way to go off to college and know maybe a car is not required. It's not surprising that you got awards for your commercials. Clackamas County does a great job with media stuff. It's great to see another good one. I'm from the generation that had folded up paper maps in the glove compartment of the car. I think you make a great message about putting the phone away. It's unfortunate that it's addressed to a generation that has only learned how to navigate a vehicle by the use of their telephone.
Yep.
So if we could work those two issues out, get them to check a map before they go and then put the phone away, that would be very good.
Well, and it's why we didn't say put your phone away. We really want you to put your phone on do not disturb. So you're not getting the constant feedback or what FOMO, for fear of missing out. We did some research on that and what was the right message. We didn't even want them to, we didn't want to give choices. We wanted to tell them what to do. Put your phone on do not disturb. And then I go into the classroom, and for those schools that don't lock their phones down, I have them take the phone out and turn it on in front of me. Although North Clackamas Schools now has it on lockdown. It's really interesting to see the kids and their experiences, and those kids that can afford it buy a second phone and lock their first phone down and have a second phone. Yeah, I see it in the classroom all the time.
Oh, my.
So how many of y'all remember the McMaster's travel guide, the map with the book, with the codes? So you could, on a very complex metropolitan area, you could, I still have them. They're about that thick, from all the different places I've lived.
I remember still in the back seat, what my parents did to keep me busy was giving me the triptych so that I had a responsibility.
Are there any questions online?
If you have a question online, would you please raise your hand? Not seeing any questions.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Rob, very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Next up, we have Sunrise. Where's that at? I never heard of that. Oh, yeah, Jamie Stasny. Presenting on the Sunrise Court. Now I remember. I remember now.
Trying to forget. Good evening. Hi, everybody. Jamie Stasny, Clackamas County Transportation and Land Use Policy Manager, and also the project manager for the Sunrise Corridor Community Visioning Project, which you all have heard about, most of you, over and over and over again the last few months and years. We've been working on this project specifically for about 18 months. We've had a few updates at C4. I'm really excited to share with you tonight that that project has been completed. I'm going to run you through sort of where we went, where we came from, where we landed, and where we're going from here. So I want to start just by taking a moment to say this project was about people. It is about people. In the Sunrise Corridor for many, many years, over 45 years, transportation has been prioritized. A lot of studies and planning work have gone on, and they have been about a road. This project was about the people. And it took a lot of people pitching in, being a part of the conversation in order to co-create a vision for the future of this corridor. So I just wanted to take a second to acknowledge all of the people, many of which are not listed here, but all of the people that were a part of creating this vision. I would like, Jamie, how much time do we have for this topic?
20 minutes, and it's okay if we go a few minutes over.
Okay, may I play a video?
Absolutely. This is on.
Do that. Can you just click that link at the bottom?
Okay.
If that works. Maybe. Yes. So I'd love to show you a video of some of those people who were a big part of this project in a second when this downloads. Thanks, Jamie. Should only take a second. 5 seconds. Thanks for your patience. There it is. Yes. Oh, I hear it. Where'd it
So
go?
what I'd like to do is help people find a way that they can connect to this new corridor project in ways that mean something to them. So whether it's from the recreation side of that, there's so many out.
Oh, there it is. Thank you.
So what I'd like to do is help people find a way that they can connect to this new corridor project in ways that mean something to them. So whether it's from the recreation side of that, there's so many outdoor enthusiasts that care about bike transportation or access to the river. I want to get more people involved in the community because I just feel like the more people connect in their community, not just live here, but have a piece and a stake in it and ownership, just the greater that the community is. And I think that the Sunrise Corridor is kind of on the edge of several communities. I live in Happy Valley, so I'm right on the edge of this. But I know there's a lot of people that are from Damascus or from Portland or Clackamas. And I just think we'd be stronger if we had more unity. I feel like Sunrise Corridor can be that community.
The area is a vibrant area. It's a livable area. And so it's a very desirable place for people to come and to work. So it's going to be, the challenge is going to be handling the amount of growth that we're going to see throughout the corridor.
I think I'm really excited about getting better foot, bike, and alternative transportation access specifically to the river from the neighborhoods. Anybody who might have to cross Highway 212 to get to the river, which is the most, it's a very large we should have better access to it and be able to enjoy it and even to help out, like access just to go and help clean up, things like that. So I'm pretty excited to see that happen and to see more safe crossings on Highway 212 happen.
Yeah, there are not a lot of pedestrian friendly areas in this, especially, I've seen a lot of the bus stops in the areas that are very, I guess, sketchy at best. They're right off the road. There's not even sidewalks to walk to them. So essentially, people, if they're trying to get on the bus, are walking on a very narrow shoulder next to whizzing cars. And there's just not a lot of sidewalks connecting a lot of places. I also do hope that there are some additional sidewalks and walking trails because we do have a lot of nature and opportunities to connect, and it's almost impossible for anyone to walk an entire portion of the corridor on a sidewalk safely. So I think that that'd be really great.
Well, I think it would be great to kind of clear up some of the congestion, right? So the transportation, which is a big focus. I think that's kind of the star of the show. But I also think taking more of a holistic view of the area and trying to make it feel less industrial and more of a place for people to be rather than to go through is really going to be huge, especially for the future of the area. And then also just the desire to create more places, right? Places that you would go to, parks and that kind of stuff is I'm looking forward to. Thanks, Jamie. So those were a few folks that really participated deeply in this process from our leadership cohort. And I wanted to give them a chance to speak. They couldn't be here tonight, but I wanted to share that we had a lot of standard committees set up here. We had a steering committee. We had community members sitting shoulder to shoulder with elected officials at those tables. We had a lot of interesting conversations because of that. We also had a normal technical advisory committee, but then we had this leadership cohort. We went out to the community, recruited for people who wanted to be leaders in this area, and we started meeting and talking about what resources they needed to do that. Man, they picked that up and ran with it. And they have been a big part of this process, engaging in the process, but also really starting to think forward about implementation. So we did a lot of outreach. We did a lot of traditional outreach like open houses. We also did a lot of pop-ups, meeting people where they were, showing up in their communities and having great conversations with them. We had a really robust engagement process, unique, and tried a lot of things that we've never done in the county. We translated information into 3 languages other than English. We did our focus groups in language. We translated our surveys. We had some of our focus groups in person at the open houses. That was really cool. We had live translation going on, walking around with the boards and really helping bring everyone to the table, removing barriers so everyone could participate. It was really fun. It was trying a lot of new things that we're going to actually implement across the county. So that was great. We also did a lot of site visits and a lot of cool stuff. We went on a hike with Counselor Sherman out in Happy Valley. He has a hiking group and they're like, hey, can you come talk to us about this while we're walking? So we did that. We went out to the farmer's market afterwards. It was really fun. Great way to meet people and share information. We also, these two pictures here are right where Rock Creek comes into the Clackamas River. That day, Commissioner Savis and some of the electeds from Metro and some staff came down and took a tour of that. It's really interesting because this corridor has always been about a road. But there's a really important river that runs right next to the road, and there are fish spawning in there. There's a lot of work that's been done there. We're really excited about the opportunities to access the river that may come through this process. So we did a great tour there. We've been having a lot of conversations there. And then some pictures of us at the farmer's market out in Happy Valley. It was a great way to get kids involved. We had a lot of great feedback and input, all of which was incorporated into the process. We did a very iterative process. We started out talking with community about what was working and what wasn't. We then came back and said, hey, did we hear you? Did we get it right? And they said, yeah, and you missed these things, add this, do that. Came back a third time and said, okay, we think we got it. Is this right? And got final feedback from them. So iterated. And at the last open house, I literally heard two people say, hey, there's my idea up on the board. And that felt so good because that takes a lot of work on both ends and a lot of listening and partnership. So I was really excited about that. These are some of our TAC meetings. I just wanted to point out, we did some unique things there as well as like riding Clackamas Connect shuttle out in the area, which runs in this is one of our busiest industrial areas in the county. And that shuttle runs using some funds, regional coordination funds, and is able to pick people up where they are and take them where they need to go. And it's been a great success. Our ridership is way up. We got to ride around on that and talk with the driver. It was a really, really fun experience. So we did a lot of great things, really exciting things, getting people out into the community. So all of this work has been done. And on April 29th, our Board of County Commissioners accepted the plan and directed us to bring back a resolution of support. What this means is that the board supports the advancement of the community's vision for the Sunrise Gateway Corridor and for that alternative for the road project to be moved forward for federal consideration in the NEPA process, as well as supports progress towards the other community identified actions. And I won't go into a lot of detail because I feel like we've done this a few times here, but this project was very broad. We didn't just talk about transportation. We asked the community what they wanted to talk about because this whole area, it's a combination of a lot of things. And I see, I think Counselor, you may not have been a part of the conversation. So this is thinking about the Highway 212 corridor heading out to Happy Valley, just off of 205, just for context. But we looked at things, boiled them all down through that iterative process and came up with these 4 categories: jobs and economy, open space, public health and environment, neighborhoods and places, and transportation. We identified big moves, which are big moves that are going to take like 5 years and more partners, and some quick wins. And put all those together. I won't read all of these to you, but there are some really exciting ideas and ideas that are fairly easy to implement that will make a big difference in the corridor. People noted early on, it's really boring to drive through this corridor. It's a regionally significant industrial area. Great. Lots of jobs. Great. And it's so gray. People are just passing through. What if we could do some murals? What if we could create some art and actually give some color and some context to the corridor? Also tree planting. We partnered with public health on this project. This was a new thing that we did. We've never really done things that way at Clackamas County. It was a great conversation. Air quality is an issue in this corridor. It was identified as one of the hottest areas in the metro region because of all that impervious surface. What could we do to help resolve those issues? One idea is to plant some trees, and we have partners out there who are ready to go on that right now. So really exciting to have some things we can move quickly on, as well as some bigger things. The vision overarching is for a bright future for the corridor, and it's very broad. I won't read it to you, but this is the statement that the group came up with. And I will tell you, we worked really hard to ask people about things other than transportation. But I will tell you, people really wanted to talk about transportation because there are safety issues in this corridor that cause a lot of problems. And so this piece of the project is really important. I've shared a little bit of the background and history with you all here. This project, 45 years in the making, evolved quite a bit in 2020, but we never really had time to talk to community. ODOT has approval to build an 8-lane freeway paralleling Highway 212 at the north. That is the approved plan. We had developed a plan that's more of a systems approach here during 2020. And so part of it that this process was to vet that with community, and it evolved some through that process. Another big change that happened through this process is we were able to break the project down into phases and pieces. So it's not just, are we building an 8-lane grade separated freeway or are we not? Now the question is, which of these phases makes the most sense and when? And can we move them all forward quickly so that they're ready to go when the funding arrives? So we have 4 phases identified here. It can actually be broken down a little bit further, but I'll just cover quickly the basics of the idea. First, that 8-lane freeway paralleling 212, we don't need that, but we do need a pass through because this is one of the busiest east-west freight routes in the state. A lot of people are just trying to get through here to get to Eastern Oregon. Some people are trying to go to the mountain for recreation. We need them to be able to move through. So the new plan has 2 lanes in each direction, which is the purple line that you see there. That is mostly going to be at grade, so that's significantly less expensive to build it that way. Also then, so that's phase 4, stage 4 is the purple. Working backwards from there, we have phase 2, stage 3, which is the east end of the project. You can see down there by Happy Valley. The old plan would have taken all the traffic on 212 and put it into the Rock Creek Industrial Area, which is just at the north end there. That was a problem for community because that's where their high school is. That's where their elementary school is, and there's one way in and one way out of there, and it is really unsafe. Also, traffic patterns have changed, and because of all the development in Estacada and other places and Gresham, a lot of people are trying to go north-south right there, and so tons of traffic was going to be pumping through. So we worked with community, with ODOT, with Metro, and with Happy Valley to create what's called a split diamond interchange design, which will support local mobility while at the same time giving us that regional connectivity that we need. So it was a real compromise between the group and probably one of the biggest lifts of this conversation. Moving backwards, the pink phase, or phase 2, stage 2, is at Highway 212, 224 intersection. That intersection is failing right now. It is very dangerous. City of Happy Valley worked on a plan over the past few years to add some turn lane capacity and pedestrian and bicycle crossing facilities. So that is a very small bite-sized piece of project in the corridor. And then the last piece is phase 2, stage 1. It's the yellow piece. We call this a safety and local connections project. This project is adding a complete street section of Highway 212. So there's a lot of bike lane gaps. There's a lot of sidewalk gaps. The bus stations are unsafe, or bus stops are unsafe there. So what this piece does is moves the road back away from from the river, adds sidewalks, bike lanes where they're missing, also adds a backage road, we call it, at the north end, which really helps with local connectivity for people that just need to move locally but don't need to be down in that system. So essentially what we're doing is creating a system that will create a safe place for everybody to be, regardless of what mode they're using. So this is the plan that was developed and vetted by community. And I have another quick video, Jamie, if you don't mind, at the bottom right there. This is quick and you shouldn't have to download it because it's on YouTube. Thank you. This shows us a flyover of what this is going to look like when it is all constructed. So there's 122nd Avenue. That's where the project kind of starts. We add an interchange that currently that dead ends right into 212. So we add an interchange, pass through. This is that safety and local connections project that I mentioned before. This middle section has a ton of independent utility, even if we just built the yellow piece by itself, because it disconnects 2 intersections that are causing a lot of queuing and congestion. So just building this without anything else really helps. And here's that split diamond interchange that I mentioned before. Also includes north-south pedestrian connectivity. There's a lot of people that live south of this area who need to be at the north end to get to schools and things. So they're really excited about the idea of being able to do that safely. whether they're in their vehicle or walking or biking. Thanks, Jeannie. Oops. Okay. So you're all like, great, cool, you have a new road plan. We have a money problem in Oregon. How are you going to pay for that, right? Great, good job. So that's the idea behind putting together these stages. How do we break these down into bite-sized pieces? How do we figure out how we can fund these pieces? How can we keep moving them forward? So this is the quick cost estimate for the project itself. It ranges between $848 to $914 million. It's a big project. And that's including contingency. That's kind of what the range is. ODOT's using a pretty big contingency these days for reasons we can all probably imagine. And we also normally would use like a 30% contingency. So that 848 number is including that. This is a big number, and it's still way less than the original project that was approved by the feds, the 8-lane freeway, because it was grade separated and had a lot of challenges. So it is still significantly less than that project. And as you can see, the different price tags on the phases allow us to be a little more nimble as we seek funding. Currently, we have an application in for $12.5 million at Metro to be able to get funding, which would pay to move the whole project through the next step of NEPA. And it would pay to design that middle section, that yellow section that I was mentioning that has a lot of independent utility, so that it's basically shovel ready. We also have a bill at the legislature for $30 million that could go to construct one of the smaller segments of the project. So we're really excited about that. So if and when this is implemented, we will see a lot of improvements and opportunities. 32 acres will be unlocked for stormwater treatment, and 27 acres of open space will be unlocked. We'll also have 16 acres of land that will be unlocked for development, probably industrial because it's a regionally significant industrial area. Also, 14,000 new jobs and 17,000 new homes will be enabled to be created. Happy Valley is one of the fastest growing cities in the state. They're trying to get there, but they need this infrastructure to support that kind of growth. All of that land that Happy Valley is looking to develop is inside the current urban growth boundary. Also, we'll have 7 new miles of sidewalks, 5 new miles of bike lanes, 3 new miles of shared use paths, and 17 existing bus stops will be improved. We'll have new stops added. 4 transit routes, hopefully, will be implemented with better connections and reduced travel times. And as I mentioned, we will, because we're removing those intersections, once this is implemented, we'll be saving 3,000 or more hours per day of time and congestion. That's per day just during the peak hours. So that's over $1 million or 1 million hours a year, which is significant. So that's one of the biggest problems in the corridor. People are just sitting there stuck in traffic. So we've been receiving a lot of strong project support. We had a meeting with Rep. Wynn, Rep. Dobson, and staff from Rep. Wynn, the other Rep. Wynn's office there out at Sunrise Water Authority to hear a presentation. They're really interested in supporting this because it's an economic development project. It's a housing project. They're really excited, and they're co-sponsoring that bill that I mentioned before. We also had a tour with the whole Joint Committee on Transportation last fall that was held Happy Valley City Hall hosted. We toured the whole corridor. We were able to kind of get off the bus and take a look at different things. It was a great conversation to help educate folks and bring them along. You can see there in the bottom, a lot of thumbs up. We got unanimous thumbs up from our steering committee a couple of weeks ago on moving the project forward. And also, just as we don't want that project to sit there just waiting for money, we don't want this plan to sit on a shelf. That's not the point of doing this work. We want this to be action oriented. And that's why we're so excited that the community is motivated and we're ready to go. So through this process, we received initially $4 million from the state legislature to do this work. We were able to preserve some of those funds. The money was granted to do the vision plan and begin implementation of that vision. So we are currently in the process of selecting a consultant to set up a coalition. Basically, everyone that's been involved with the project so far will be invited to continue along as part of the coalition. And we are going to start taking meaningful steps toward implementing some of these pieces. So we're really excited about that. Our leadership cohort, who have been a part of this the whole time, are really excited in participating in selecting that consultant, as well as looking forward to how we're designing the coalition. We're going to have a big launch this summer with a celebration in the community, and also to acknowledge and celebrate all the work that went into creating the vision itself. So we're excited about that. We'll keep y'all posted. We're hoping to have it outside somewhere fun and have ice cream and or cake and lots of other things for the community to celebrate. So as I mentioned, the Board of County Commissioners accepted the recommendation, and we'll have a resolution of support on a business agenda soon. I can't remember what the date is exactly. Also, May 6th, City of Happy Valley accepted and approved a resolution of support. Those two resolutions are needed to support the next step in NEPA. So that's really the completion as soon as those are done, and then those will be accompanying the application when it goes in to the NEPA process. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to be launching this coalition. So we're really excited. I've been saying since the beginning, this is the fun part, creating the vision, working together. And now we're going to really lean in and do a lot of the hard work of pushing toward implementation. So we're excited. We hope you all come along with us and be a part of the conversation as we move forward. This has been a challenge in Clackamas County for many years. We've made a lot of progress. There's a lot of momentum and energy in the community, and we just want to keep building from there. So thank you for having me here tonight to wrap things up. Happy to answer questions if you have them.
Okay, questions? I know some of you have been, Jamie's been keeping you all pretty well apprised on this for a while, so we're excited to get to this stage. Are there any questions online, Jamie?
Yes, one from Christine Lewis.
Okay, Councilor Lewis.
Good evening. I am sorry I'm not there in person. With the switch, I got double booked, but I am so enthusiastic, not only about the results, but frankly, the process. And Jamie leading community cohort, and in particular, the work being done with folks who already live in the corridor with the anti-displacement frame. So I'm super excited about that. And I'm excited for the coalition. So I guess what are the next steps? How can all of us support the recruitment for a coalition? And basically, how can we make sure that the momentum, yes, there's a funding opportunity right in front of us because of the legislature, but what other momentum things can we be doing in community?
Thank you, Councilor Lewis, and thanks so much for being an advocate and a supporter throughout this whole process. So right now we're in the process of selecting a consultant. My understanding is that the notice just went out to all the applicants. They have 7 days to protest. We're in that period right now. We're preparing to revise and finalize the scope with them. Once that is done, we will bring the contract forward to the Board of County Commissioners for approval, and then we'll be launching right into that next step. So I'm happy to talk more about what that looks like. We've invited partners to be a part of that conversation. If you have staff or others that you would like at Metro to participate in that conversation, we would welcome them into the discussion. I know Metro has a lot of experience with coalitions and different efforts like this, so we'd love to learn from you all and would love support from your team. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll just make a little bit of comment, and that's, I think two things that I wanted to see happen, which was recognized earlier on, was really safety for mainly pedestrians and bicyclists. And there's so many kids who live on the south side of the highway, and yet the schools, the services are on the north side of the highway, and there is no place at all safely you can cross. So this is a big deal. And so for that part, that's one big benefit of this project. And once it's built, we'll have that far more safety, and they won't have to cross a highway. They'll be able to go actually underneath it, as I understand it. Secondly, there are some, and Jamie kind of mentioned early on, the confluence of Rock Creek and the Clackamas River. And also on the other side, the Rock Creek, there are a lot of environmental assets, paths, green spaces that people have no idea. You driving down this commercial kind of industrial corridor, it's not too pretty, but people have no idea that that little bump out, that the Clackamas River is literally just a few hundred yards away from the highway, within sight, actually, but no one should stop. No one should drive down the road and look, but pull over. But hopefully maybe we can make a park out of that, or some kind of a pull off or something like that, to just highlight that, kind of having that a little bit of kind of a waterfront, so to speak. But if that ever comes to fruition, maybe there'll be a partnership with Happy Valley and Parks and so forth to make that happen. But any other comments, questions? Great. Not online? Well, thank you, Jamie, so much. Oh, there is a line. Mayor Bliastowski.
Hey, hi, everybody. This is Rory. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I just wanted to congratulate Jamie on getting to this point. I know it's been a lot of work that she's put in to lead the team to get to this point in the project where it's ready to be adopted and get to the next step. So good work and good community engagement. I appreciated hearing about that. Look forward to seeing what happens. It's going to enhance our entire region.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm also sure if Mayor Drinkwine was here today, he's been a big advocate and wanted to push for this. He's Mayor of Estacada, way out there, but 224 connects out to this. So this is one of their main lines to the urban area. Again, thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Next up, Brent Wilson, our legislative updates. There's nothing going on, is there?
Nothing going on down in Salem. It's very busy, as many of you know, as many of you are reading. Tomorrow is a really important day. It's the second deadline for a chamber or for a joint committee. It's their first deadline if it's a joint committee to post a bill into a work session. So it has to get passed tomorrow or the bill functionally dies. Normally, I'm really excited about these deadlines because there were over 3,400 bills introduced this session. And then after the last deadline, we got down to about 1,800 or so functional bills. So this will whittle it down even more, but we're starting to get into the final stretch, the last month and a half or so of the legislative session. So we're starting to see what really is ticking. There are a lot of things afoot. Clackamas County is in good position for a lot of things. That's true for a lot of our city partners as well. And so I think there's some good momentum there. There's also a lot of troubling bills, in terms of some of our lines of business as local agencies, especially around, I would say, land use. There continues to be a lot of bills that give a lot of folks consternation at the local level as the state tries to wrestle with how to build houses faster. A lot of the ideas that come to legislators are from developers who I think have good intent, right, to go and build doors. They're the ones who build it, so we should listen to them. But sometimes they're working around the process that's in our house, which is the land use process, for which we are mandated to do a lot of different things. And so it is this catch 22 of like, go faster, but don't forget to do these 14 things, but do it quicker, but don't forget to add 3 things to that, but go quicker, but no, you can't have any money to do that. So it's this constant friction of those competing interests. Meanwhile, we're the bad guys, in this narrative, which is of course not true. I know all of our local jurisdictions, at least here in Clackamas County, which is host to many of the fastest growing cities in the state, I would say are not the problem, but it is hard to articulate that because sometimes amongst our colleagues, there are some challenging jurisdictions that might put up some roadblocks or might be moving slower. It gives legislators the, for lack of a better phrase, the ammunition or the fodder or whatever, the fuel that they need to, pursue some of these, what I think of as like micro adjustments. In many ways, we've been joking about this at the local lobby that we're trying to streamline a vehicle, like working on the aerodynamics of a car that has a broken motor. And that's really the challenge here. And we're just sanding down some of the rougher edges, but it doesn't have what it needs to actually drive right now. And so hopefully, what I would like us to see maybe in the interim or off season is for maybe our local governments to get together around like, what do we think, from our internal process could be improved? What are some of our ideas for solutions? And maybe get ahead of some of those legislative ideas in the future. So if you have ideas or if you have a planning staff or you'd like to have that proactive conversation to get ahead of the next land use bill that's going to come in 2026 or 27 and 28, 29, 30. They're all coming. So like, it'd be nice if we're in front of some of those or that the ideas are coming from local governments. We're open to those conversations. All that to say, be on the lookout for Senate Bill 974. It has a hearing on Monday. All right, that's just one of them. There's a few other ones, but that's a big one on land use. May 14 is the next revenue forecast, and that is the forecast by which the state legislature will set their budget. It's next week. And so we will see just how good or not good or fine the Oregon's economy is looking to fund our government for the next 2 years. Just an interesting way that we do our budgets where this one point in time, we set our forecast for the next 24 months. It's good stuff. Love our process here. Really exciting. But I think with the general feeling here in Salem or down in Salem, we're here in Clackamas County, but down in Salem is that the economy in Oregon is doing good, still positive, but it's not crushing it like it used to for the last, 5, 6, 7 years. And so it's, I don't want to say plateauing, but leveling out is probably the better phrase. That's what we've seen out of the last couple of forecasts. Positive, but not like booming. And so there's a lot of, there's a desire to not be as aggressive with some of the spending ideas that are out there. Add that to a lot of the one-time funding from the CARES Act or from the other COVID-based funding that came out of the feds. That was all one-time funding, so that's going away. So that is tightening a lot of budgets at state agencies as well. That was passing through money to our local governments to do good things. And then add on top of that the additional federal turbulence that we see frequently, daily, hourly, that is like, this federal agency is not going to do this. Just kidding, they are. And we see that type of change happening coming out of DC. Those dollars trickle through the state into our state agencies, and they fund a lot of programs here. So I think all that to say, the state legislature is going to take this information and do the best they can with it, but it is in the ecosystem of how do we also insulate our state from being over affected by many of the things that are outside of our control, that are still new, that are very unpredictable. And we're going to see that affect, I think, budgets for state agencies and programs that we have all held near and dear to our hearts, which could be things like housing, education, healthcare, you name it. So I think we're in for a bit of a bumpy road here in the next couple of years based on that type of narrative. So light all your candles for a great revenue forecast here next week, because the better that is, the less bumpy the road's going to be. But I think it will still be a little turbulent no matter what, because of just how much uncertainty there is, or at least how much people are feeling that there is uncertainty, whether or not it actually is true. I'm not an economist. Don't play one on TV. I'm just sharing with you what the halls are whispering about in terms of that. You know that Clackamas County, one of our top priorities is moving forward with the recovery campus. Tomorrow is a really big day for Salem and the legislature because there's the Capital Construction Committee. This is the committee by which most funding requesters go through the process to ask for their pet projects that will show up in what's normally called the Christmas tree bill or the lottery bond bill. This is how the state funds, those micro requests across the state. Some of them are not micro requests. Some of them are big requests. There are about $1.7 billion of requests that are into the state right now. There's only about $500 to $550 million available in lottery bonds. So again, better the revenue forecast, the better something like that can maybe be, but that's not, we're talking more than 3 times as much request as there is available money. So big pieces there. But one of the ways that we're trying to do or activate some of that is looking at the recovery campus through a capital construction request. So we'll show up and testify in favor of that. But we're also trying to work that through a governor-supported bill. That's House Bill 2059, which is money that is supposed to be dedicated specific to recovery beds for substance use. So that's a big priority for Clackamas County. So it's sort of a belts and suspenders approach. We just want to keep the pants up on this project, so to speak, and try to get it to move forward. I don't care. Trent doesn't care which pathway is successful, but we want one of them to be successful because that's an important project for all of our communities in Clackamas County to make sure that we have that, recovery-based infrastructure in there for some of our highest acuity clients and people and constituents and residents here in Clackamas County. That includes your cities, that includes unincorporated, includes anybody who needs it. So that we're really big on that project. That also includes Sunrise. So we just talked about that, right? But there's an opportunity to testify in support of Sunrise tomorrow as well. There are going to be a lot of people to testify, but if you want to testify in support of it, please sign up. There's a couple of folks in here who I think are signed up, and so that's really exciting. Our bill sponsor for Sunrise, which is Representative Hua Win, her staff is going to testify in support of the project at the Capital Construction Committee too. It's a $30 million request. It's too bad that flyover video that we just showed didn't quite center on that intersection where we came up with that math, but it's the intersection of 212, 224. It's a big part of that project that Jamie's been working on. Not the whole thing, but it's just a little piece of it to kind of help move it forward. So it's one part of the bigger puzzle, moving it forward one piece at a time. We can't request $1 billion project. It's an expensive project. There's a lot to it, but we want to keep it moving forward. This is an opportunity to do that. And the economic conditions of the state legislature are very, very real. Which good segue, since we're talking about a transportation project, to talk about what is likely going to be the big talking point of the state legislature this year, or at least that's the way it seems so far, is what's going to happen with the transportation package. I believe the last time I spoke about a legislative update to C4, the TRIP framework had just come out. Does that sound right? Is that about the same timing? It was just, okay. Maybe that very week, if I recall. Yeah, just kind of over the weekend or that day. So we've all had a chance to let it mature in our minds about, is this a lot of money? Is this not a lot of money? Is this the right package? How come no one's talking about it? Where's a bill? Will there be a hearing? When will the hearings be? Does the legislature have enough time to actually work on this transportation package? How come there's no bill yet? These are all the questions that everybody's asking in Salem. You're not alone in asking these questions. The last thing that we have heard is that there was maybe going to be potentially a bill tomorrow released. Tomorrow's an interesting day, but I've also heard it could trickle into early next week. But sometime in the next 5 to 7 days is what I can not promise you, but encourage you to be on the lookout for what I think will be called House Bill 2025. So let's be on the lookout for that. It's a common thing for the legislature to just name the transportation package after the year that the bill is going to be passed in, hopefully passed in, if that's where you're hopeful that this bill does, is that it does pass. Generally speaking, most legislators are, this word's going to sound negative. I don't mean it to sound negative, and I don't want to ascribe a feeling to legislators, but complacency or agnostic feels like an appropriate attitude or atmosphere by some legislators right now. The urgency of a transportation package, or at least the excitement of a transportation package, is not as palpable as it has been in years past. And I think that is really in large part due to the consternation around the information that's coming out around ODOT, or came out around ODOT earlier in the year with some of the accounting errors, and that includes the $1 billion accounting error that came out in February. That includes the HCAS math that was public a couple weeks ago. It's challenging, and I can't do any of that math, so I'm not going to I have nothing to say about that. That's tough, and that's also not Trent's job. But what is great about the transportation package, what I would encourage all of us to be thinking about, is we have been very successful in creating what is currently in this package based on a couple of things that you all helped us produce. One of those things is the values and outcomes document that all of your logos are on, many of your logos are on anyway. And what is in the transportation package framework right now really reflects a lot of the values that we have put into that document. The Board of County Commissioners put an agenda together and have asked me to go use that to inform what's in the transportation package. Largely, not all the way, not 100%, but largely what's in the framework addresses many of those pieces. And then many of you, or some of you, are also on JPACT, and JPACT has a transportation package policy framework. And what's in there: short-term funding, long-term funding, transit access, safe routes, great streets, climate connection, things like that, also in the package. So generally speaking, all the things that are important to local and regional governments are captured in some way in the TRIP framework. And I'll be the first person to say it's not perfect, but what is creating some of that complacency, or the feeling of that complacency in Salem right now, is what do we do with ODOT? There's a big conversation around accountability still. There are no details out yet around what accountability will look like for ODOT. And so I think legislators are really struggling with $1 billion accounting error. How do I give you more money? But also, yes, there is still that big need that we've been talking about, and you need more money, but I can't go to Fred Meyer and get a new ODOT. So how do I solve the ODOT that I have? Because we still need ODOT to be a good, high functioning partner for all of us. And again, going back to where we've been successful with keeping the 50-30-20 split, that's in here too. So yes, ODOT gets a lot of money, maybe, but also so do local governments. And that's a really, 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 really big deal. What's in the TRIP framework is more money than what was in the 2017 package. And I will be the first person to say, as a taxpayer, that is hard to swallow, and the need is expensive. So I'm not a policymaker. That is for y'all to wrestle with. Merry Christmas, or Happy Hanukkah, or whatever you celebrate. But that is what's here for you to wrestle with and support or not support. But if the need is real, and if you believe the need is real, you have a package that can go address a real need. Where there has been some conversation since this came out is the OTA and we have transit providers in here, but the OTA has said for the whole year, really, that they were hoping for the stiff to increase from where it is now at 0.1, 1/10 of 1%, to 0.4 or 0.5, which is a huge increase. It's a massive increase. And when the trip framework came out, it did not go that high. It didn't even really double, it got close, but didn't quite double the money for transit. And there are advocates in Salem who are comfortable with that. There are advocates in Salem who think it should be much higher. There are advocates in Salem who don't want to see transit at all, period, in the state. Like they don't, they feel like some of it's a dated piece of infrastructure and we have Uber now. You have all types. So I just want to say that there's a spectrum of people and feelings around transit. It's fair to say my transit providers in here. Yep. Okay. So there are a lot of feelings about that, but generally speaking, I think we have many times in this room talked about the value that transit brings to our community in Clackamas County. So where there's an effort to support transit, there is a need for that voice here too. And it's hard to do that without bill language. And so again, ticking clock on this bill, when it comes out, it'll be a really big deal. I believe that legislators are going to want to hear from their local governments about if this bill passes in whatever form it shapes up to be when it's published, if this bill passes, what can it do for you? Because it's captured right now as an O&M, an operations and maintenance budget. And in the years past, you would see a bill that would have 20, 30, 40 projects, and a legislator could say, I know what I'm getting. I know what's coming home, sort of. But like I have the idea of like this project that's named. Those projects aren't named or they're not going to be named in this bill, not in the same way that it was in the past. So legislators are going to be reliant on you, local governments, to know if you get an increase, how many roads, how many miles of road can you pave? How many bridges can you replace? How many crosswalks can you put in that aren't there? How many sidewalks can you create? They are going to want to know this is still a projects package. I'm using air quotes for my online folks. It's still a projects package, even if you don't see projects named in there, because it's changing in some ways the paradigm of how much money you have in your local transportation budget if you're a local public transit or either a transit provider or a transportation provider. There's money in there to build things, to do things, even if it's just more maintenance that you've been backlog on. It's potholes. But a legislator from your district, or if you're in their district, they're going to want to know what that take home is. They're going to need your help to advocate for that if you support a transportation package and if you support this transportation package. I don't want to go too far away from this without sort of speaking to the Republican package that was sort of in framework that was introduced last week, which was largely a cuts idea. And so there were some areas within ODOT and ODOT funding buckets where it spoke to like, there could be reductions here and there could be reductions there. Mixed feelings about what was in that, in Salem is what I mean. Mixed feelings about what that was trying to identify or whether those numbers were tight. And there was an article, I think yesterday, that said some of those numbers were not tight. So I think the message of the package, though, is this framework has been largely just released into the wild and then a void of information and no bill to give it details. And I think it's largely like more money. Taxes need to go up because we need to spend money to do things. But there hasn't really been the conversation around, but there's still this ODOT accountability issue and can we find some efficiencies? And so what I would encourage you to think about with the Republican release that happened last week is this feeling that maybe we can do both. Maybe there's an appetite for legislators to do both. And I think I personally think that it will take some of both heavy accountability combined with some new money, because I think we all agree there's a need, and there's certainly gaps like road user charge and the electric vehicles that aren't paying into the system, right? There's a need for moving some of these things forward, but there's consternation because we're struggling with ODOT. And there are legislators, this is my final point, there are legislators who want to see, maybe not talk about like finding money for ODOT, but finding within the local government side of things that this is a positive step forward and that local governments, we can go back to like where local governments are showing success because you're getting money to do those local projects, to focus on those crosswalks and those safe streets and those potholes that sometimes ODOT doesn't get to. So until we have a bill, I don't know if I can say much more than that. It's all, we're all in like the rumor mill and the whispers and the, what have you heard? And what does this mean? And what does that mean? And that's all worth a bag of beans until we have a bill. So we're just waiting for that. But then it's a quick clock, as I said at the beginning here, to get to the end of session. And I think because of a potential very late release for this transportation package, we're probably going to go up right to the bell on sine die for the legislature, because it's going to take the last few weeks, 5-6 weeks to really work through that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Trent. Any questions for Trent? I'm looking online. Anyone? Raise your hand if you have any questions. All right. Seeing none, just one thing I just want to amplify a little bit. And the accountability question, I think in my conversations with legislators and public, I think, you know, the news about some of ODOT's issues, admissions and so on is drawn the question, so what have you done to fix it? And I don't think there's an answer quite yet. So I think that is something that I think a lot of people are expecting as to what are the fixes, instead of just throwing more money at it. You know, what can we do? And on another note, and you know, to my transit friends, you know, I know that there are about apparently three, maybe four, 3.5 agencies in the state that are making a plea for more money because of financial hardships, while a lot of the other smaller entities are doing pretty good. I'm sure everyone could use more money to expand service and so on, but you know, I've certainly received a lot of concerns about another kind of red flag, you know, then what are, you know, the newspaper article that came out about the large provider that provides service in our area, TriMet's challenges that they have in their press release and the news articles. So I think that the question that I keep on hearing from legislators, so what's the problem or what's the fix, as opposed to just throwing more money at it. So I think there's a willingness to help and, you know, provide more funding, but at the same token, I think there's people asking the basic question, whether it's ODOT or TriMet or the other agencies around the state. So what's it look like? I mean, how, is there a way to get where in a better place to where you can survive and still provide service? But it kind of gave me a little bit of angst when I heard that, you know, cuts could be coming to our area as soon as 2027, depending on whatever that stiff amount is or is not. So I have concerns. I do know that our two providers here today don't seem to have those challenges. You know, I'm sure more revenue could do more things. Is that fair? Dwight?
Yep, absolutely fair.
Okay, Todd? Yeah. So I know we're a little bit over time. We have some really important stuff. I'm gonna, unless someone has a JPAC update or an MPAC update or wants one, I'm gonna forego that tonight because our key people aren't here. And I'm going to have Jamie talk about her new wonderful electronic means of tapping into the summer retreat. Jamie, could you please share?
Yeah, and before I get to that, I want to quickly harken back to a few months ago. We sent out a retreat planning survey to the members of C4. As part of that exercise, we invited members to identify topics that they would be interested in discussing. Since that time, we have tried to start interpreting some major themes from that planning exercise. Within that exercise, there is a heavy emphasis placed on housing as well as transportation. Tonight, I'd like to get your initial reaction to this first interpretation of your feedback to see, are we going in the right direction? Are these the right topics? And based on that initial feedback tonight, I will take that back to the executive committee on Monday night as we continue to refine these topics in greater detail. Briefly, we are doing, or this framework proposes a flip-flop of our traditional transportation housing structure. Day one will be housing day, doing a 360 view of housing. In the morning, or excuse me, in the early afternoon, starting with what can I do about housing, or rather peer-to-peer learning about different local housing financing strategies that one could pursue, with the goal that guests would exit that session with some tacit knowledge on the opportunities and challenges of different financing tools. Then shifting into a space of what can we do, engaging C4's interest in doing something together, and also exposing guests to some novel tools that are a larger scale or things that would need to happen as a multi-jurisdictional effort. Then shifting into session 4, looking at what is happening outside of our orbit at the regional, state, and federal level, recognizing that we have different interests in each, with the hope that members would be able to identify how it would like to coordinate moving forward. Before I move on to day 2, are there any initial reactions to this high-level topic outlay?
Let's take a look at our online folks first this time. Let's switch it around and ask
Right.
our online members for any thoughts. Seeing no hands. Those around the table, Mayor?
Jamie, my city has already done housing needs analysis requirements, but we've not gotten yet into housing production, but I know other cities have. Is this kind of focus going to be a little too duplicative for the people that have already been through that process at the local level? Or would it be an opportunity to learn from those who have already been there for those of us who haven't yet? How do you envision that?
I think there are a lot of strategies we could pursue based on the executive committee's feedback. If this is of interest to C4, one possible strategy is looking at doing another panel of cities who have employed specific different strategies and being able to talk about them almost like a case study.
Okay, that sounds like a good approach. Thanks.
Any other comments online or in the room? Okay.
Okay, well then we will jump over to day 2, which is Transportation Day. Okay, so recognizing where we are in the session, there is a lot of interest about what comes next after the legislature concludes. What came out of the package? How do we coordinate? What does coordination look going forward? We propose perhaps spending the bulk of day 2 on this question, really leaning into what now? And asking that question to C4, how would you like to coordinate? And then rounding out the morning and ending the retreat on this idea of what is the future of transit? Over the last several months, we've delved into different elements of transit, some transit challenges, but also maybe holding space to talk about solutions and what does that mean? That is incredibly high level, and that topic needs to be further refined by the executive committee. Are there any questions, and are these perhaps the right 2 topics to spend our day on at the retreat? I will pop back over to the Zoom folks. Zoom folks, can I get a head nod if you think these are the right topics? Great. Folks in the room, can I get a head nod if these are the right topics? Seeing some head nods. Okay, so recognizing, or what I'm hearing is that these are generally the right topics. We're moving in the right direction. I will carry this in greater detail to the executive committee on Monday. But before we conclude today, I'm pleased to share that we're doing something a little bit different this year, which is to say that we are changing the registration process. In the past, we've relied heavily on a PDF reservation process. We're going online this year. So this form is in tonight's packet. However, I'll also be sharing it out in mass next week. But when you click RSVP, you'll be redirected to this page where you'll have the option to select if you'd like to attend overnight or daytime only. There is a split fee structure this year because we are offering not only the opportunity to pay by check, but also the opportunity to pay virtually. The virtual payment option includes a small percentage increase for an online processing fee. So if we were to click attend overnight, continue, there's the opportunity to fill in your name, your email address. Whatever email address you put in is what your confirmation email will go to, including the option to add it to your calendar as a calendar hold. We've expanded our event accommodations. And also, one thing the executive committee has been working on this year is looking for opportunities to invest in our host community. And in this way, hosting an off-site dinner service and time of networking on Friday night. Because it's off-site, we'll be offering a shuttle to and from the restaurant. There's the option in this form to opt into the shuttle and also add you to our C4 mailing list if you're not already on there, because these meetings are clearly the place to be. And then we'll click complete registration and it will auto-populate into your email. Are there any questions?
Questions in the room?
All right, hearing none. When you click complete, you'll be prompted on next steps for how to pay the retreat fee. We are working out a few hiccups in that process. It's our first time. If you do run into issues, please reach out to us as we navigate this kind of pilot process. Though I would ask people to wait to pay until at least Monday. Excellent, thank you.
Great.
All right,
All right, so Jamie, you're completed?
I am completed if there are no questions.
Get online, no questions. Folks, anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.